not fade or wither. Can the world ever satisfy the emptiness in our hearts? In vain we deny. In Him alone is our hope. In Him alone is our strength. In Him alone are we justified. In Him alone are we saved. When will you cease running in search of hollow meaning? Let His love feed the hunger in your soul till it overflows with joy you yearn to know. In Him alone is our hope. In Him alone is our strength. In Him alone are we justified. In Him alone are we saved.
Wow.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That was our opening prayer. So this goes out to everyone who are still struggling during these difficult times. And we hope here at muSiCahAn we could always bring you hope. Yes. So welcome back, guys. Hi, Kuya Anton. And hi,
Hello.
Nina.
Hi, everyone. Yes.
Hi. Yes. And, this special guest that we have with us today reminds me about another special guest that we had back on episode 4, season 2, Sir Lester Delgado. Yes. And I think he happens to be a good friend of Sir AJ as well. Of course, we'll get to know our special guest more in a while. But what I really remember about Sir Lester Delgado is that he was such a brilliant composer, and he was very much open to share his works with us. So now I'm looking forward to our special guest today, who is another great composer and organist. Now, before all those other details, I would just like to greet everyone. Mabuhay and good evening. This is Sam.
Good afternoon to everyone. This is Anton.
Good morning. 早安. I'm Nina.
So, Nina, what can you say about your personal experiences? I believe we'll be talking a lot about organ music today. Of course, I'm sure Sir AJ knows a lot about that. But what do you think of this?
Well, I'm so excited to meet a fellow keyboard person. And as I said, for me, I did my honors in music piano performance. So to see we always say that we play on the grand piano, but the organists, they actually play really on the king of all instruments, the organ. So, and how, the organ has evolved so in the periods of music, right? I would think from the Baroque period or even before that, but in the medieval times, it was more the organum and more the importance of voice. But later on, it was the importance of sacred music from 15th, 16th century with composers like Palestrina uh, in Italy, and then Bird in England, and Buxtehude, and who was a famous organist composer. And I would also say that later on, one of my favorite composers in 1685, we have Johann Sebastian Bach in Germany, right? And Handel too. And later on in the 18th century or 19th century will be the famous pianist organist of César Franck. And in the 20th century, who can forget Messiaen, who was very famous as a pianist organist and also very much into the service of God and playing for the church itself, just like our guest today, AJ, right? And I would just say that I'm so inspired that we have Celesta and AJ today to talk about their music, because again, for them, the ethos that music is actually for the glory of God, and how beautiful sacred music is, and the emphasis that actually if you are a believer with strong faith, you would say that everything we do is for the glory of God. And so it would be very inspiring to hear from Sir AJ about his philosophy and how that guides him in his music.
And
Who is your
yes,
special guest today?
yes, it's none other than Sir AJ Consolacion II. And according to his profile description, he actually enjoys a dual career as organist and composer. He studied organ with Thomas Dressler, Matthew Lewis, and Peter Richard Conte. He also attended master classes with, okay, so some of these people are actually French, so please pardon my accent. So, yes, as I've said, he also attended master classes with Guy Bouvet, uh, Frederic Blanc, and the last one isn't French, so I think I could pronounce this one. The last one was Jeffrey Brilhart. Now, these guys are quite big in the music industry. Like, for example, if we talk about Guy Bouvet was a well-known, or still is a well-known organist. And according to what I know, he has written about 1,400 paperworks regarding the history of organ. So from that information alone, he truly has dedicated his life to organ music. And I find that to be ultimately amazing. And of course, aside from Guy Bouvet, I mentioned Frederic Blanc. Again, please pardon the pronunciation. And for Frederic, for example, he mastered, or he was mastering the art of improvisation at such an early age in his life. So music has always been part of his life, and he continued this even upon his adulthood. And it's so good that he started getting more involved in competitions and in starting master classes, which Sir AJ over here became a part of. And of course, there was Jeffrey Brilhart as well. Jeffrey Brilhart actually also focuses on improvisation, and I think he teaches a lot about how to apply spontaneous creativity in music. You would be able to find him in the Yale School of Music as well, if you're interested. Now, just to continue, or going back to Sir AJ over here, Sir AJ finished his master's in organ performance degree at the Westminster Choir College in Princeton, New Jersey, and received his performance diploma from the Royal School of Music in London with distinction. Okay, and that's pretty huge. I believe Nina here is very familiar with the reputation of the Royal School of Music in London, and I'm sure it's something that you and Sir AJ over here could talk more about later on, which I am excited to listen to. And so, other than that, also from the Philippines, I'm sure that Sir AJ also has had quite a number of influences from Filipino composers and musicians. One of them being Sir Greg Zuniga. Actually, Sir Greg Zuniga, who taught Sir AJ piano or how to play the piano at some point, also became a teacher of mine in college. And yes, he's a very good Filipino concert pianist. But at the same time, he also teaches music theory and at times music history as well. Such a great teacher and such a good performer. Other than Sir Greg Zuniga, we also have Professor Armando Salarza, who also contributed to his musicianship as his pipe organ teacher. And Professor Armando is also a big name here in the Philippines because he also happens to be the main organist, I believe, the main organist of the bamboo organ in Las Piñas City in the Philippines. So he's an organist, a harpsichordist, and a conductor in Las Piñas City here in the Philippines. Now, aside from Sir Greg Zuniga or Professor Armando, Sir AJ over here also studied composition under Father Manuel Maramba and Dr. Jonas Baez. So these are also big names in the Philippines, and it's very sad to hear that that Father Maramba passed away quite recently. So he has contributed so much to Catholic Church music here in the Philippines, and he would always emphasize the importance of making them liturgically relevant. We cannot just perform anything at church, especially if it has secular influences or non-religious influences. So he was very specific about that. And of course, as I've mentioned, we have Dr. Jonas as well. And Dr. Jonas is very known as, or well known as a cultural activist. He really wanted to promote Philippine music. He really wanted us to get to know our roots, especially the indigenous Philippine music that we have. So very good influences, I would say. And just to continue with the introduction, if we talk about Sir AJ's compositions, I would say that his prolific compositions vary from small to large scale choral works, music for solo instrument, chamber music, and orchestra. His works were premiered or performed by the following choirs: Westminster Choir College in the USA, Taipei Male Choir in Taiwan, University of Philippine Magical Singers in the Philippines, of course, Pilgrim's Mission Choir in Korea, and the Little Singers of the Yokosuka Arts Theater in Japan. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, he is a composer, but he's also an organist. I was surprised to hear that he was invited to perform for Her Royal Highness Queen Sofia of Spain. Wow. And that was during her visit to Manila in 2001. And what's very interesting about Queen Sofia is that she also has a lot of interest in a lot of genuine interest in music. Actually, she had a very difficult childhood. I guess that goes for everyone within the royal family. It's very much part of their daily lives. But she was involved in World War II, and during that time, it was very difficult for her to travel to Greece. As some of you may know, her father was King Paul of Greece. And because of the Second World War, she had to stay. She had to stay in Egypt for a time before she could go back or return to Greece. But other than that, I really admired that she decided to pursue her further education. And she actually specialized in music and in childcare as well. Now, going back here, as I've said, as an organist, Sir AJ was invited to play for Queen Sofia of Spain, and he actually played the instrument at the San Agustin Parish in Intramuros. He was awarded second prize in the National Organ improvisation competition held at the University of Michigan last October 2014 and was awarded the audience prize. Okay, and here's more. Sir AJ over here regularly appears in organ recitals and festivals in USA, Hong Kong, and Manila. He was a member of the artistic committee for the International Bamboo Organ and was a resident composer from 2007 to 2012. He has recorded numerous CDs playing the historical organs in the Philippines, and his recordings were released under the Diego Serra Records and CPO label. And he is widely respected for his gift of improvisation, attributed to his lush harmonies, chant like melodies, and witty syncopated rhythms, which give his works a unique spiritual language. So basically, that is my introduction of Sir AJ. If he would like to add anything else, then it's up to you, Sir AJ. Forward. Actually, we invited Sir AJ today. To all our viewers out there, we invited Sir AJ, of course, to promote his music, to inspire more people with his music. But other than that, we would also like to ask him some very interesting questions. So let me just start it off with my set of questions, Sir AJ. So, to satisfy our curiosity, please tell us, how different is music education in the Philippines from those we may encounter abroad, specifically from the countries you've been to? And what new musical knowledge, skills, and life lessons have you learned during your stay overseas? So, what could you say,
All
sir?
right. So that's a very good question. No, first, I would like to thank you, Samantha, for a wonderful introduction. So thank you very much for that, and also Anton and Corina for inviting me into your wonderful Musica Kahan. No, this is a wonderful opportunity for us musicians to explore music creativity and performance. No? So in that question, the difference between the educational system here in the country and also in US, or let's say in Europe, in UK, there's a lot of difference, of course, because me as an organist, I'm actually studying about culture, not only music, feeling about the Western culture of organ, on which the organ is very rich with repertoire, because it started right even before Baroque period. It started in Middle Ages, where it comes from the Egyptians. They have these kinds of small pipes putting in their nose, and then they they started to whistle. It's just like a whistle pipes, no? But later on, it becomes a breast organ, and you see the painting, famous painting Cecilia, the patroness of music, that she holds this breast organ. It's a very um, uh, wonderful painting because it tells you that on that era there is already an organ. So what I'm trying to point out that Europe have a culture that is long developed compared here in our country. We are developing; they are already developed, and all these kinds of development, you cannot actually know that by textbook. You cannot know that by simple having a one. It's not about teacher. It is about the experience of the environment. It is the experience about the tradition of what they have there. And if you were able to engage yourself to that, and then the music or any kind of form of art, let's say music, painting, architecture, this becomes a secondary, because music composers, these are all reactions about the art or the lifestyle of people based on a different era, of course. But even the era change, the identity of the nation still become intact and become strong. It's developing. So that kind of development is something that is so interesting to us artists to witness or to observe, because if you were able to live with that kind of greed, then your music is either I want to be a European and I want to project as a European, but it becomes a secondary to you and you become a cosmopolitan of different kinds of music, of different kind of musical environment. So I can play Filipino music, which is so natural to me because that is what the music that I heard when I was 10 years old. You know, my Lola sings kundiman. My father is a wonderful organist also. So I hear them doing this in a very practical and very private way. No, so you cannot say that it is so uh, established because he studied. No, it is so natural because it is inhabit in the culture. And if we see these people that I studied with or go to a different place, I saw that it is also like that as a family event. For example, if you go to an Anglican church in England and you hear Stanford music performed within the liturgy of the Anglican Vespers, you can really say that there is a tradition with that. The same thing with attending the New Year concert in Music Verein, that you will see that the Vienna Philharmonic really plays Strauss music with the same understanding because they have the same blood. It is the differences also with us Filipinos that we perform Abelardo that is so natural to us because Abelardo is one with us, you know. But these kinds of stuff is nonstop. No, that's the main reason why composers, musicians travel abroad to give um, concerts, recitals, or attend lectures, seminars, etc., because they want to really to witness the development of this cultural heritage. And I'm telling you, Western music is not really solely confined to Westerns. Western music is already us. That is what we inherited to them. They just came first. No, it just happened that because their history is so long, that their Western civilization is started so early. No, but this kind of gift to humanity is now being enjoyed by everybody. No, but it is so important, especially in music and also in the arts, that we are not only understanding the onion skin of the music. Now, what I'm trying to say about that is the initial sound that we perceived. Because every time that we listen to music, there is an inner sound that we must understand, and that's part of the history, the culture, the life of the composer, of course, and also the style of the music that we are trying uh, to tackle. So these kinds of forms, all these things, um, I learned it. I learned it when I left the country. I realized when I first came to United States, I first played a piece of what is this composer? An American composer, I think Barber, Samuel Barber. And I'm playing this to my teacher, my wonderful teacher, Matthew Lewis. Matthew Lewis, by the way, is my teacher at Westminster College and a student of Maurice Duruflé. So the French connection between Maurice Duruflé and Madeleine Duruflé within Foray language, within the Foray circle, inhabits his being French musician. So he corrected outright that in France they do this way. But it's just like firsthand, and I play to him some Duruflé pieces, and you say, you know what, I played this to Duruflé in his organ in the house. Duruflé was so sick, he's in the room, and he called the wife and he said, the wife pointed out that I must play this way. Now I'm saying that there's no right or wrong, but to learn the mindset of the composer firsthand, no, is so important to everyone. No, it's not only uh, it's not only the instrument of the organ. If we are talking about composers, for example, in choir, I remember I was always asked by the conductors of the choir to do some workshop, and then in the workshop, I will going to point out something to the choir about the interpretation. But of course, I will not be dictatic about the interpretation because artistry needs to be flourished first because interpretation is part of the imagination of the conductor, the singers, etc. And I am very fascinated to see their interpretation before I go there and hear them that, oh my God, I never thought that way. And I might say to myself that I must learn from them also, because what they interpreted is something that I really don't imagine. But somehow it's better than what I imagine, you know. And if I will adapt that to my piece, and then my music becomes more attractive, I guess. So learning two ways like that. And then I remember when I'm playing a piece of Spanish music, and Spanish is so special to the Filipino hearts because we're
Mm.
colonized by Spain for how many years? 300 plus years. So if we are playing tango, or if we are playing habanera, all these kinds of stuff, it is second nature to us because, you know, Antonio Molina, Hating Gabi is a form of habanera and tango.
Mhm.
We just don't know that, but it's a habanera. It's a Spanish dance. And if we know Maalaala Mo Kaya, this famous Filipino love song,
Yeah.
it is a tango. Yeah. So if we take a look at that kind of dance form, so I played a tango ecclesiastes. You can imagine that ecclesiastes is meaning a sacred tango by Guy Bobet. And then I played the sacred tango, and then I played the tango and it danced. And he said that, can you show us how do you dance the music? Because it is so right. And I said, well, maybe because you're Constelacion. Are you Spanish? No, I'm not. Maybe it's because of the family name, but I look like more as an Asian than a Spanish. But it is probably because of the influences. It becomes so inherent to us for so long. So that kind of thing. Filipinos, when it comes to Spanish music, so let's me distill this. Filipinos, when it comes to Spanish music, I just find it, I have no problem. They learn from me. But when I learn from Baroque music, let's say English Baroque music, and then I have so much to learn about that in UK. If I learn in America about Samuel Barber, because Samuel Barber stays in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania's area, and some of the people there have actually first-hand experience with the composer, and then they will really tell the temperament of the composer because they know him. So those kinds of things, I was just simply blessed. I'm just simply blessed that I was able to grasp learnings on that kind of environment. So advancement about musical studies, it depends. It depends. If uh, if the Americans and Europeans wanted to learn Asian music, of course they learn it here. Us Filipinos, if we really want to learn Western music, then we have to go there. So it's two sides of the story.
Wow. Well, thank you. By your explanation alone, it sounds very holistic. And I
It is.
agree. A lot of our influences, not just in music, but in all forms of art, have been affected by colonization. So thank you for sharing. But how about you, Nina? What do you think about this?
Well, I can now share my Australian experience. I'm quite fortunate that I have can compare two countries, Australia and the US, right? And in Adelaide, we had a 4-year bachelor leading to honors program, and I was it was very interesting because besides some music piano performance, we had to learn very much the theoretical side of things. So history of music, theory of music was very important because I know sometimes usually for the performance students, they just spend a lot of hours on the practicing the piano. But I think really at the end of the day, if you do not know how to analyze a piece, if you don't have a deep depth of knowledge for the history of music, it would be very difficult to actually interpretation. I just also wanted to share that there was a mention by Sir AJ about the Yale School of Music. I happened to spend 4 years in New Haven, right,
Uh-huh.
at that particular place. And in fact, I attended many concerts in the 4 years that I was there. And I've also heard about the Westminster College Choir. And I've visited Princeton before, and I was thinking how nice to be able to meet people or have friends who are there at the Westminster College. And here I meet them in this episode at muSiCahAn. So thank you, Sir AJ. Right. I think very important that I'm very blessed that as a musician, we have the chance to perform in many different countries. So I performed in Indonesia, I've performed in Surabaya, and also blessed for in 2015, 2016 to perform at Carnegie Hall, and also, and other countries like Thailand. So I can imagine, and of course in the Philippines, and I can definitely say that once countries' influences are very, very important. What you imbibe from childhood is extremely important. Actually, sometimes what you learn in your childhood or in your young days, maybe it's actually stays with you longer, and that affects also how you look at music, right?
Mhm.
And so I remember that as a child, I, besides classical piano, I used to go and to the library and photostat all the music of all these musicals. So and I would just go home and bring the whole score and then play the whole score. So I really got to know this music. So people were so very, very surprised and said, "Hey, how come you know all these old musicals like Brigadoon or Camelot or My Fair Lady and know it very well, every song, or right?" Or, and as I said, also when we did when I was young, when we did the Mozart sonatas, it was the 21 sonatas, I knew everyone. And basically, because I've got perfect pitch, when I listen to the CDs, I just basically remember everything. And I always um, very fascinated because one of my favorite composers is Johann Sebastian Bach. And I think he is such a god, not just for the pianist, but also for the organist, right? Who can forget things like, for piano, of course, the 48 preludes and fugues. That means two books of the 24 preludes in all the different keys. So he was the composer that was the actual name of the composition for 48 preludes is the Well-Tempered Clavier. So that was the system of well-tempered tuning, right? And of course, the Johann Sebastian Bach, his oratorios, his masses, right, and his cantatas. And I think one of my favorite cantatas would be "Where Sheep May Safely Graze." I'm sure AJ would know that very well. Yes, and so I find that organ music and Johann Sebastian Bach definitely being very, very inspirational in my younger days, and even now, when I find that I have something that I'm not so happy, I just sometimes listen to my Bach preludes and fugues or the Goldberg variations, and then I'm happy again, right? Because I think that music really has the capacity to soothe the soul, right? And definitely for to imbibe the ethos or philosophy of a man who really, really truly believed that his life was meant to glorify God. So I really find that that is I'm very inspired by all these church organists and church musicians. In fact, in Singapore, our Cathedral of the Good Shepherd has a very fine organ and also a very fine choir. And know that the cathedral organist at the Good Shepherd is, I think, Alphonsus Chair, I think. And I'm not sure whether Sir AJ would know him.
No, I heard about the new organ at the Good Shepherd. Yeah, it is because
Yes,
if I'm not mistaken, that organ was just recently restored 2 years ago,
yes,
and that
right.
was
And of
restored by a
course,
Filipino organ builder. It was
yeah,
restored by the Diego Serra organ builder, who happens to be a good friend of mine, and now the one who's actually making sure that the bamboo organ are in good hands or
yes,
intact. So they are the only Filipino organ builders here in the Philippines who did
uh,
wonderful projects in Singapore lately. Yeah.
right. I didn't know that. So it's really interesting. And who can forget, we have also a very fine organ at the Esplanade Concert Hall.
Esplanade, yeah.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Yes. So we'll look forward one day that Sir AJ would have the chance. Have you been to Singapore
Yes, I've been
to
there.
play on the
Yeah,
cathedral organ
yeah.
and also to perform?
I take a look at the organ before it was being restored. That's why I was there,
Yes.
probably
Right.
7 years ago. So yeah.
So, Sir AJ, I would just like to ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
Right. So, are you ready?
Sure. Yes.
So, we'd like to know what makes the timbre of the organ interesting and distinct.
hmm Well, thank you for that question. The timbre of the organ is distinct and interesting. All right. I think every instrument is having a different timbre, and every instrument have a different character, and each instrument is distinct. And probably the main reason why I love organ, because the first time I heard the organ at the chapel at Saint Scholastica, when I was going there, I'll just tell you this very short story. When I auditioned at Saint Scholastica to become a music student, I auditioned for a composition. And it was the late national artist Lucio San Pedro who will go into audition me. And I was really, really scared. It was Lucio San Pedro, and I admire his works. And then I get my portfolio. And then, oh my God, Lord, I'm so scared. Can I just go to the chapel and pray? I said that. And then lo and behold, somebody's playing a trio sonatas of Bach in the chapel. And uh, I forgot to pray because I was so amazed in the music. I fell in love with the music, and he said, I want to play the organ, Mama. I want to play the organ. I said that. Imagine that. I really forget all these kinds of nervousness because I first attracted to the timbre of the organ. And I remember what I heard. And I said, it sounds like an orchestra. It sounds like an orchestra. And it depends also about the player. If somebody is really a good player, it really sounds really a good orchestra. But the first impression I have to that is it sounds an orchestra. And it is so true. Depends on the organ. The organ can sound a chamber orchestra, sometimes a native sound orchestra. Depends on the nationality of the organ. I'm talking about the cosmopolitan differences a while ago. That in England the organ is different, in Spain the organ is different, in America the organ is different. It's just like that. Filipinos have a different sound also. So the organ here in the Philippines is also different, like the bamboo organ. It is soft spoken. Soft spoken for a Filipino organ. Okay, kind of. All right, but but for the American organ, the strings is so
Right.
lush. Very typical American. If you want to hear the old movies, no, it sounds like Hollywood. So the American organs is like that. But the German organs is what we actually hearing about Bach's music. It's the fundamental sound of the organ, the basic sound of the organ. And I think that's the main reason why it is so important that we have to learn Bach as an organist. It is not because that he writes good music for the organ, but he is the foundation, the basis of everything. It is all the same with the composition, but first I would like to tackle the organ works of J.S. Bach. Uh, the difference between the different kinds of organ, all these kinds of things, can be considerably exposed if you know a lot of kinds of repertoire. Okay, but Bach's music and repertoire can expose different kinds of sound of this instrument because in the first place he wrote a lot of music in the organ. He composes about 125 choral preludes, if I'm not mistaken. He had this kind of 40 preludes and fugue alone in the organ. So if I am an organist, if I will record the complete works of Johann Sebastian Bach, I need to finish 17 CDs to record everything. Imagine 17. And if you play slowly, then probably you get 18 or 19 CDs. So, so that's how huge this collection is. And if you try to take a look at this kind of overview, it, it it encapsulates all these kinds of different sounds of sonorities in the organ. So Um, Organ is basically uh, huge in sound. It can sound like an orchestra. It can sound like a flute keyboard, or you can hear an orchestral instrument, let's say an oboe, and you can hear it like an oboe sound as a solo instrument, and then there's an organ who's accompanying it. So many, so many, and I think that is the main reason why they use organ in the church. First and foremost, they cannot pay orchestra every week. All right. And organ can actually carries the entire congregation. If you have 300 people inside the church, if you play the organ, then you can actually encourage these people to sing loudly and musically with the accompaniment of the organ. And at the same time, the organ can imitate the orchestration that is written on the score. I remember this story, Father Manuel Maramba. The first time I first heard him, I was not yet his student, but I was impressed so much when I heard him play the entire Requiem by Mozart in the organ. Because there's no orchestra, and he insists that he will going to play it in the organ. And I said, okay, I will going to turn the page for you. And he's reading on the score. He's reading on the full score, and he's trying to put everything in the instrument. And he's so brilliant transcribing all this stuff. It just comes out like, wow, okay, we don't need the Manila Symphony for this, you know. And I'm not saying that, of course, the expression. Here's the thing: expression of the organ. It is so somehow naive compared to the passionate expression of the musicians of the entire orchestra. That's the difference. Because the organ also have a limitations with the expression, because it is a machine, you know. But if you have hundreds of people playing in an orchestra, and then you have a conductor who's leading them to be expressive, and they do that expression together as a unity embodiment of a orchestra, and then you created as a spontaneous expression of human beings. So that is more direct. So that is more expressive compared to organ. Whereas organ, the challenge of us organists is to make that beast, that organ, sounds like a human being. You know, it needs to breathe. It needs to speak. You know, that is the difference with that. It's same thing. I think, Karina, in the piano. Piano sometimes
Yes.
can be viewed as a percussion instrument. In the orchestra, it is part of the percussion instrument. But you have to devise a playing in the piano that your tones will not sound percussive. It needs to be cantabile. It needs to be singing. It needs to be lyrical. Depends on the music, of course. But if you were able to draw a line for example, if you develop a legato playing in the piano, which is actually the most challenging things about how to learn that, and then you will be able to see that the instrument is becoming a human. It becoming fresh. So I think the timbre uh, have every instrument have its unique timbre. Piano, you can easily say it's a piano, it's a timpani, it's a cello, it's a organ. But what really makes it amazing is if you have an artist who can make that timbre a human being.
Thank you so much, AJ.
Speechless.
Yes. We just didn't know what to say, whether to clap or to just keep quiet, right? Yes. But I think that is comes to again the topic about instrument, and it can about being a workman or being an artist. Again,
Oh
so
yeah.
talking about artistry, right?
Mm.
Because I mean, you really have been to many concerts, and you have the same piano, or 4 days, same piano recital, program, and same piano, four different pianists, four different sounds. So I
Yes.
think also as pianists, the first thing, if we're always taught about tone, right? And
Mhm.
I'm blessed that I play the violin, and the first thing we talk about is tone, the
Yeah.
sound. I think I'm
Mhm.
saying for singing is also the sound, right?
Yeah.
because music is oral. I mean, you can, not anybody can not see you, but if they hear the sound, they will be impressed. And so that's why I said music is really about hearing, auditory. So again, the sound, the beauty of the sound, and as you mentioned, like the American organ, it would sound very lush, like old Hollywood. And I think I was one thing we forgot to mention was that all the old silent movies had the
Yeah.
organ there, right?
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
especially the horror movies, and that's
Oh.
rather than the orchestra, you can see it was with when the sound came in and people had to talk, and that was when a lot of the silent actors they went out of
Mm.
business because their voice was not good enough, right? And I remember,
Mhm.
I think watching one movie that talked
Mhm.
about how these actresses, they with the top beginning of the walkie talkies. So what happened to all these actors and actresses because like one of actors had a funny voice and it was too comical to be heard. But with the silent movies and the organ, it was different. Because the organ created, as I said, like an orchestra, it created the sound and the ambience and the atmosphere, right? So that's why the pianists and the organists will always fight and say, "We are the king of the instruments," right? And of course, organ you can see is physically very much bigger. But I really appreciated your comment about Johann Sebastian Bach, and for us also piano. Foundation for piano is the 48 preludes and fugues, which I think sadly a lot
Yeah.
of the younger ones do not get to play, and the foundation for counterpoint. So and as you mentioned, your
Mm.
choral preludes and also the two-part invention, three-part inventions, partitas. A lot of them they say, "Oh, we're going to do the Rachmaninoff. We are going to do the this Prokofiev sonatas and concertos." But then you ask them, "Can we play Mozart? Can we play Bach prelude and fugue?" They say, "We don't play that." But you notice that a lot of the Russian schools, the in Europe definitely, foundation means playing Bach. Foundation
Yeah.
means playing Mozart and Beethoven.
Yeah.
Correct,
Yeah.
the three Bs and maybe even Brahms, right?
Mhm.
So I would like to ask you, as a musician, what are your views about Giovanni, Perluigi, and Palestrina? And do you turn to these timeless greats for your inspiration? If so, why or why not?
Bach is so important, as what we said, because it's the foundation of Western music. I will say that. Yeah. But Bach always look at these composers: Palestrina, Frescobaldi, Lassus, Orlando de Lassus, all these Renaissance composers, Miserere Mei by Allegri, all these things. It's very important to J.S. Bach. And I would like to look at it. Why is it so important? Because when the Western music starts, the writing of the counterpoint at the time when Palestrina is doing, it is already the high Renaissance. So he is already developing his counterpoint in a very stable way. But before that, for example, Mesho, the Notre Dame composers at the time, there is not yet a sense of tonality. The difference of tonality is quite different from what we know now. So these kinds of sacred music, these kinds of repertoire was established at that time, and it is so huge. Renaissance era, you don't have an orchestral music much at that time. The less that you can do is viols music by William Byrd. That's it. Strings, and you cannot even call that as a string quartet. It's just viols, right? And you have keyboard instrument, of course, organ, harpsichord. Most of the pieces are for voice, for an accompanied choir, and you will see the beauty of it. It is just like if you look at the building of an old architecture or cathedral, you see the equalness, the high ceiling things. You can hear that in the music of Palestrina. You can hear that kind of perfection. And you know why Bach perfected his music? Because Bach copied Palestrina.
mm,
He copied every perfect composers. And I must say that why is it Bach is so important? Because he encapsulates all the composers before him. And one is Palestrina, one is Allegri, even Frescobaldi. And it is so true because you can see at his notebook, at his music, that he transcribed these kinds of pieces. Um, he had this, even this Misa Papa Marcelli, a Catholic Roman Mass, sang in a Lutheran church, no less than St. Thomas. Can you imagine that? A Lutheran church singing a Catholic Mass. That's kind of
mm,
at the time. No? Yeah, but because he know the importance of Palestrina and the importance of these kinds of writing, he asked the choir to learn it. So when I'm learning this kind of Bach music, for example, as an organist, because it's a foundation, I'm learning this Saint Anne fugue from the E flat prelude and fugue. There is this fugue that my teacher pointed out to me, and he said that this is Palestrina's writing. Why? Because it is a stile antico.
Mm.
It is an old way of writing a fugue that when you can see it, it is so perfect. It's not really a baroque. It's if you listen to the sound of the organ, it sounds like a choir singing it. Can you imagine that? So it's if you have the right understanding to it, you will look on the right sound of the organ and look at the sound. How will I going to make this sound like a choir? And then I will put the sound, and then it sounds like a choir. So, um, and then you realize that Bach makes these kinds of Palestrina's music to to the dances that he have now on his time as a Baroque composer. So imagine the partitas, as mentioned before. There is a alaman there, there is a minuet there, there is this rondeau, these kinds of different cosmopolitan dances in Europe. These beats, it's just like we known in rap, the poppy, poppy, pop, this kind of beats in our modern time. Can you imagine if Bach will live at this time? He will use that beat, and he will put that Palestrina's music in that beat. How cool is that? That's how they think. So that's how it is really important to me. What is important about Palestrina? I listen to Palestrina first, aesthetically wise, because it is so perfect. It is just like going to the museum or to the building that is so perfect that it will purify your soul. Purifies your mind. If you feel so annoyed, experience Palestrina for 5 minutes and then you will be happy. That is so true. That is so true. There's the magic on that music. And then if you listen to Palestrina and try to analyze how he writes, you can actually make that kind of writing into your own writing as a composer. And then you can just simply easily learn how to write polyphony. Yeah. I remember Stravinsky always saying that those great composers steals, but they will never mention what they steal. Okay? And Palestrina is a lot of music, and then if you steal some portion, you will not get trapped of it, you know. But that's again, it's just I'm just kidding. But the importance about the music of Palestrina is also that it is perfect. I must say, it is really perfect in its proximity. You know, a building, for example, you go to a cathedral and you say that this is perfect,
mm,
even though it's not perfect because it's made by humans, right? But you can see the Michelangelo, the creation of man in Sistine Chapel. How dare you to say it's not perfect, right?
mm,
It is perfect. There's a perfection of art with that. But the imperfection of that art makes that perfect, right? That makes it perfect. The imperfection of that art makes it perfect. That is Palestrina also. The imperfection of his writing makes it perfect. And that's what makes great Bach is because he copied Palestrina, and what makes him imperfect is because he's writing it the
mm,
way how these great people influence him. So I think it is so important nowadays to learn Palestrina's music. Why? Because harmony, number one, harmony. You can learn the blend in the choral music. If you're a choir director, you can blend or match your choir properly if you ask them to sing polyphony. Because it is so hard to cure the choir if they're just singing four voices all together, because some people in the choir can really cheat. Some male altos will go in to sing louder, and then the conductor will say, "You alto who doesn't sing, just keep quiet." All these kinds of cheating. But in Palestrina, you can't cheat. It's all exposed. It's just like four main streams of lines, put them together. If your choir master that independently, then you are now putting a good foundation. That's the most important thing. You're making a good foundation for them. So I remember a great choir conductor that I've learned with, Professor De La Rmente of the De La Salle University. He always goes back to madrigals. He always asks the choir to sing "Far, Far My Heart" by Merle, and even some Palestrina masses. The last thing that I remember, so close to Palestrina, is the William Beard Mass for four voices, and we did that. And one of his reasons is this: "Why did you teach that, sir?" I asked him. "You know that it's a suicide to teach that piece, right?" No, he just laughed at me. It's not. It is important because they will learn a lot from this. I'm telling you, if they master this movement, I can easily ask them to sing Pulang. I can easily ask them to sing this kind of piece, even pop music. They will sound great. And that is really true. I remember after rehearsing the William Beard, I was one of the choir, and I was really upset because it's already late at night, and then we're not perfecting it. And then he said, "Okay, can you just bring up your piece by Moses Hogan, the Battle of Jericho, Joshua Feet, the Battle of Jericho, the Negro Spiritual." And we just realized that when we sing the Negro Spiritual, it's so much easier. And the notes are perfect. We are blending. We are really one. And thanks for the foundation that we've learned on that early piece. So I think that is so important as well. When you're learning a Palestrina on keyboard or Bach at a polyphony keyboard, you will really say that your fingers are independent per voice. You can sing, you can play three voices in one hand, and that's really really hard. It's really really hard. But when you play, for example, Schubert pieces like let's say these kinds of accompaniment for her leader, his leader, it's polyphony. It's homophonic. You can see that the chords is just easy to play because your fingers are so independent that it can voice all the notes properly. So when you play the chords, it is so easy that okay, I want to hear the soprano more compared to the bass because of the foundation that you've learned in the polyphony. So I think that is the main reason also on why is it that these kinds of music are being taught in choirs. And then also the aesthetic because it brings healing because it's so really beautiful to the soul. And then also it is an important piece to define the church history. That's why it's still there.
Thank you for that,
Thank you so
Wow.
Sir
much. Yeah.
AJ and
Thank
Nina.
you. Mm.
I believe you have a musical performance you would like to share with us today. Could
Hmm.
you tell us something more about it?
All right. I recently did this pandemic. It's so different. Everybody goes to social media and
Mm-hmm.
all the teachings, all these kinds of choir rehearsals. Now, it's very different from what we know as choir rehearsal.
Yeah.
The choir rehearsal, we cannot sing together in Zoom because we will
Mm-hmm.
not be really together. No? But the only hope that we can do is to put everybody's recording as one, make a virtual choir. It's very challenging for the singers because you are singing, you don't hear your neighbor, or
Mm-hmm.
probably if you try to be a recording engineer, it is a nightmare to put 50 voices in one sheet of recording and put them together. It's a lot of editing. But that's the way of living now, and I
Mm-hmm.
realized that we have to devise a way to create music. So we formed this kind of Voices and Bound group. Every Saturday, during the start of the pandemic, we meet. These are the gatherings of different choristers in the Philippines from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao who auditioned and wanted to join the project. And it's not about singing, it's about health care. So we invited psychiatrists, psychologists to give talks on how to maintain sanity during these hard times. And we
Mhm.
believe that music is a perfect tool to keep everybody sane. Okay, so uh, one of the culminating project is this "Go My Soul," this piece. So my friend wrote a lyrics. It's about finding light in our own hearts at this difficult time. So we recorded this independently. I asked the members to submit the recordings, but the good thing about that is we never leave that way. We wanted to create an environment that we are still a community. Yeah. So what we do in the community is we practice online. I give them instructions, and then they collaborate. So there is a leader. They follow the soprano voice, and then they talk. They blend to it. So all these kinds of strategies, so that they can actually sing. So the importance of singing. So the outcome is this. This is the last virtual choir that we did last year, and yeah, the text itself speaks about the hope that we must be hopeful because the sun will rise again. It will be back to
Yeah.
normal
Mhm.
soon.
Though we are miles apart,
as we celebrate the birth of Christ.
May we find the light of our Savior.
as the beacon of hope in these times of darkness.
we will once again journey in this life together.
Christmas is a time to hope and be hope to the hopeless. Each of our voices matters. So, like Christ, whose star shines bright this season, may we be sparks of inspiration for others and be radiant stars to those whose skies remain moonless in these trying times.
May our soul find the light of Christ into our hearts. In behalf of Cantus and the Voices Unfound family, I wish you all a Merry Christmas.
Oh, it truly inspires me when I hear and sing sacred songs, especially these trying times, during these trying times. Yeah, for so many years that I've been singing in a church choir, there are times that I tend to be too technical when we sing. Then sometimes you get lost on what is essential, right? On what is the true message of the songs.
Mhm.
So as I age and learn more pieces, I grew more matured and truly understand and know by heart the lyrics of the songs. And I am really inspired by the song's prayer for generosity, because for whatever we have at hand and we are able to share it to others, it gives you the deeper meaning of contentment with God's blessings, and that life should not be focused on oneself. And the most grateful experience in my choir life is when I became a part of the 1,000 member choir when who sang at the Luneta Grandstand in the 2015 visit of Pope Francis here in the Philippines. And I felt so immensely blessed because it really feels so heavenly, right? With the 1,000 member choir.
Yeah.
And Sir AJ, we thank you for the song you've just shared with us. It's a very inspiring song.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, please tell us what's next for Sir AJ Consolacion. What would you continue to compose sacred music, or would you be interested to branch out into secular music as well?
Well, I'm composing a lot of music. No, people thought that I'm only composing sacred music because most of my pieces are actually known both in liturgy and both in choral music and also in organ. But some people never thought that I compose actually a stage musical. No, I
Oh,
have a musical when I was in college. No, I also composed a music for ballet and incidental music for orchestra. All these kinds of stuff I'm writing. And one thing that what I can say about my life as composer, it's there. No, it's always there. It's the avenue for me to express something. What I mean about an avenue for me to express something is about the truth. For example, if your mouth and if your mind and if your heart fails to say the truth, then I hope that my music will speak on it. No, and that's the main reason why I base my text on the scriptures. And
mm,
recently, I'm composing actually psalms. No, one way of saving my own sanity. No, I was really depressed because at this point of time, musicians are pathetic. I must say that.
mm,
It is so hard not to perform, no? Because that's one way of our expression. To see audience, it's part of the energy theme, no?
mm,
Musicians who perform only by themselves, it's not actually called as performance, it's a rehearsal. But to have an audience is something that we are desperate to have for at this moment.
mm,
But again, we look on different kinds of avenue like this, so I'm very thankful. We have audience here, we see the music here, so this is a different way of what we call the modern performance, as we say. But uh, what is something that I will really thankful about God is I have this ability to write. Because if I'm in despair, or probably if I'm on loneliness, or probably into uh, bad light, then I have an ability to write. When Go My Soul came, it's just like that. I mean, I do hope that I will find my light also in my own life. So when what I'm doing now is actually I'm writing a psalm setting for Catholic
mm,
liturgy. So I'm posting a lot of psalms, and it is a challenge for me. First, in educational sense, it is a study in my behalf to write songs. I'm a composer, but I never tried to become a songwriter. But I can be a songwriter if I write a responsorial psalm, I hope. Okay? Because I'm writing a responsorial psalm in a song way. So the verses are not actually on psalm tones, it's not a Gregorian tone. The verses are also on a song. So it's just like writing a musical, though. You are trying to put everything in, for example, the church calendar cycle B or year B. I'm completing all the responsorial psalm from Advent down to Christ the King. So, and luckily, see how God sustains me. I'm so just thankful that I just finished it last week. I started before Christmas and I finished all the songs last week. And we started recording it with my bunch of friends, one way also of reconnecting to people. And then we are doing a recording that we can put on Spotify and YouTube. So this is also one way also of helping churches who are now
Yeah.
in need desperately of music. As we know, there are several churches who don't have choirs. They are not permitted to do so.
Mhm.
So recordings is very essential because they are asking for recordings for their televised mass
Mhm.
or for their online streaming of masses. So that's why I'm doing that as a part of the ministry. I love playing. I love playing the organ. I love playing the piano. But I find it that to video yourself playing the piano and play less of pieces that you think it will become bravura and put you on a bravura light is something that I call fasting. No, I will not do it now. No,
Mhm.
at this point of time, people needs more silence, and I think people need more inspiration. That's why I still do the bravura, but I have to be very careful about putting it, no, not too much happy clappy music, but something
Mhm.
that is more extroverted and try to put them into a meditation. So I'm recording a lot of piano music, probably by what we say is composers who are associated with modern minimalistic works like Einaudi. I love this guy so much. And even Yuruma, these kinds of
Mhm.
Korean pieces, very emotional pieces. But when you hear it, it gives you sense of hope. You know? And I receive a lot of feedbacks that please keep going. Because I believe that when I'm playing this, I'm healing myself, and then I think that I can also heal people too.
Yes.
So that's why the reason why I'm pointing this and bringing this out to public. Yeah, and then I'm playing organ. What I'm planning to do, which I recently did last Saturday, is I recorded organ at Union Church. This will put me into practice mode because if I will not have any goal, I will not practice. So as an organist, I have to keep hope again and build my repertoire. So every month, I'm planning to publish in my YouTube a 30 minutes program of organ music.
Mhm.
So hopefully, I will get in touch with the churches that I know the organist or have connections with their organs and start taping on it. So this gives me a looking forward thing to practice more. So this is what I'm technically doing. These are all media based
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
But you have posted already some psalms, right, on
Yes.
YouTube?
Yes. Yes. I
I
do.
saw some already.
Yeah. Yeah. Please use it. I mean, I if you need the pieces, just contact me. I mean,
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sharing it
Mm.
for free, and I just hoping that your church will be able to use
Mm,
it.
yes.
Wow. Well, the fact that you're sharing this music for free actually shows your intention for the music. Of course, I understand that as a form of livelihood, it's very important for professional musicians to actually earn income from their music. But
Right.
at the same time, it also means a lot to be able to provide free music that could inspire people. And
Yes.
just
Yeah.
like what you said, Sir AJ, I think I was moved. I was moved by what you mentioned earlier about what you said about depression, because we've spoke about this in previous episodes as well here at muSiCahAn
Hmm.
or here on muSiCahAn, and it's true. It's true. This is what most of us are experiencing these days, and time and time again we talk about how art form and how music is such a perfect outlet for self-expression,
Hmm.
and the best way of expressing oneself is to be able to inspire people. I think we could freely use music to express our negative emotions too, of course.
Yeah.
Mm,
After all, we have that free will. But I think it extends more, and I'm sure you would agree, it reaches out to more people if we are able to provide hope or motivation to them, just as your music has been doing to a lot of people. So thank you so much for your wisdom.
You're welcome.
But if I may say, because I wasn't able to react to your discussions earlier with Nina and with Kuya Anton over here, also because I am also worried about the internet connection.
Mhm.
So I try not to give my inputs in between nowadays because I'm trying to learn from previous episodes. So let me just comment on the music that you prepared for us today, which was "Go My Soul." Just listening to it, without seeing the visuals, just listening, just hearing the music, actually gave me that celestial feeling. So I hope you don't mind, because the title that we decided to give to your episode was "Celestial Harmonies, Heaven's Music on Earth."
Oh, thank you for
And
that.
I think
That is
I think
beautiful. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
and I think it's a perfect description of your music. Because for me personally, a while ago, while listening to your music, I felt that while listening to those beautiful transitions of dissonances and those suspension chords, and arriving back to the tonic, made perfect sense to me. I really liked how smooth the transition of the harmony was, the counterpoint even. I like how the different voices spoke to each other, repeating time and time again the text "Go my soul." It was a call to action, right? It was a call to action, something that our listeners, that our viewers would remember, as a way to prompt them to go, to move forward, despite the ongoing struggles that we have now under this pandemic. So thank you so much for that. And let me just comment also on your discussion regarding JS Bach or Palestrina. Like you said, a lot of people would look up to these iconic figures like Mozart or Beethoven, because we hear these names all the time. Even if you are not a professional musician, I'm sure you've heard. And I'm talking to my viewers, to our viewers out there. I'm sure you guys have heard of these names from school, even if you have not taken up formal music education. But it would be interesting to note that even composers like Mozart, Beethoven, and Haydn have looked up to the techniques of J.S. Bach. So I think that's also one of the reasons why it's important for us to look back, because we all learn from the evolution of time. Everything that we have gained today has been developed through the course of time. And so to take those lessons we've learned from these timeless greats would be a great mistake, because we wouldn't be where we are now if it weren't for them. We wouldn't have made these discoveries we have now if it weren't for them. So thank you very much. Now, finally, just before we end, because we were talking a lot about the organ as an instrument, right? And I highly agree that the organ has such a wide capacity in terms of timbre. A while ago, you were talking about how it could produce orchestral sounds, and at the same time, it has percussive sounds. It could sound like a woodwind instrument, primarily because, especially for the pipe organ, for example, because it is the air that flows through the pipes that produces the sound, right?
Right.
So it's very interesting what a versatile instrument it is. And if we briefly touch on its history, I'm sure some of you know that it all began in ancient Rome and in ancient Greece with the water organ, when it was used to actually be played for races and games.
Mhm.
It was quite secular at the beginning, and later on, during the Byzantine or the Byzantine Empire, during that time, it was also used for secular or non-religious purposes,
Yeah.
only to be introduced in Western Europe as a liturgical instrument for the
Yes.
Catholic Church. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because it's another reason why it's important to know our history. We could clearly see the evolution and how significant such music and instruments have been. And I think it's the same for human lives. If I could connect human philosophy to music instruments or to the evolution of musical instruments, I think that we too should also learn from our history, right? From like, for example, with COVID-19, with coronavirus, we've had many pandemics and epidemics throughout history. And yet, some of us still make the same mistakes. You know, some of us don't really learn. We go back to relaxing, we go back to our old vices, you know. But this time with coronavirus, I hope that this is a wake up call for most of us. That just like with the evolution of time, with the evolution of musical instruments, we too could learn from this virus. And so, if it happens again later on, many years from now, we already know we have new discoveries that could help us to battle the effects of the pandemic. So again, thank you so much, Sir AJ, and we hope that we could collaborate with you a lot more in the future.
Of
Well,
course,
we have
my pleasure.
your Facebook account, we have your social media account, and of course your YouTube account. So speaking of social media, would you like to promote your website or your channel? This
Oh,
would be
sure.
the perfect chance.
Mhm.
What would you say to our viewers?
Actually, I did this YouTube channel not because I just want to monetize. I just want to be straight. No, I use this channel for one purpose. We need
Mm,
music now, now,
mm,
and as a musician, our weapon is not firearms. We're not
Mhm.
using that. We're using sound. We're using these kinds of things to edify ourselves, especially at these difficult times. And that is the main
mm,
reason I want to make a commitment of writing, making music, so that I can also help my community. And that's the reason why I would
mm,
like to invite you to go to my channel. Just type AJ Constellation in YouTube, and then you'll find a
Mhm.
bunch of music there, from organ music, from piano music, from compositions that I composed. So you can see a lot of music that probably will suit you. So yes.
mhm.
Yeah,
And that's it.
there will be a lot of hope in music.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
right,
need
right.
for that now. There's a need for
Yeah.
that now.
True,
Thank you,
true.
AJ, for that, and to inspire and
Mm,
tell us that our music is our weapon. Indeed, it
Mm.
is to give joy and hope and light, right, in this sea of darkness.
yes, yes. And I hope this goes out to all our aspiring musicians out there. And this includes both, actually, both music majors and non music majors, because we've talked about that a lot in the past. I hope everyone feels free to express themselves through music and
Yeah.
through art, because it is
Yes.
your right.
Mm.
Mhm.
And hopefully, to our viewers out there, please express yourselves in a way that you could inspire people, just as Sir AJ has done over here and continues to do. So, thank you again.
Oh, you're
Thank you
welcome.
Well,
very much, Sir
unfortunately,
AJ.
Right.
well, that's it for today, guys. But please stick around for the next coming episodes and travel with us next time.
In this amazing journey with music,
Stay safe and God bless.
Once again, I am Sam.
I'm Anton.
I'm Nina.
And of course, this is muSiCahAn on
Channel
Channel E.
E.
Bye.